All right, everyone, welcome. Chef Jess, I'm here with Dr. Katherine Hom. She's our integrative medicine physician in obstetrics and gynecology. She was trained here at UCI and she did her residency over in Vegas, where she had a lot of fun, apparently. And so she's going to be speaking today about women's integrative health. And we do have Women's Wellness Day coming up. And so I'll follow up with a few different recipes that are related to what she will be talking about today. So I'm going to hand it off to her and I will see you in a little bit.
Great. Thanks, Jess. Good afternoon, everyone. First off, I just want to thank Chef Jess for hosting this amazing event and inviting me to join her. As an integrative obstetrics and gynecologist, I'm looking forward to sharing with you a bit of knowledge on how to approach women's health holistically by looking at hormonal health from a gut perspective. When we look at a lot of ancient traditions globally, from Ayurvedic to traditional Chinese medicine to ancient Greek medicine, we see that these traditions put digestion as essential healing and vitality for women's health. So 90% of women experience digestive problems, often leading to hormonal imbalances. We can find hormonal imbalances in gynecological conditions such as endometriosis, PCOS, infertility, premenstrual syndrome, and perimenopausal symptoms. So maintaining a healthy intestinal lining is essential for hormonal balance. This is because the digestive system is in constant bidirectional communication with the endocrine system. So let's briefly go over the anatomy of the gut to explain this relationship. Our intestinal lining is made up of a single layer of surface cells called enterocytes, with finger-like projections that increase the surface area to provide nutrient absorption. In fact, our human gut mucosa measures about 300 meters squared, which is about the size of a tennis court. Mucus that coats these cells acts as a physical barrier, maintaining a healthy pH, protecting the lining from inflammation, and supplies the microbiome with important nutrients to thrive. The layer between the enterocytes is something called the GALT, or gut-associated lymphoid tissue, which represents about 70% of our immune system. We also have tight junctions that act as gates between these enterocytes and monitor what passes from the gut to the immune system. So when these tight junctions leak, the protective integrity of the gut lining is breached, and then food particles, fragments of bacteria, and organisms, and small intestinal waste products cross into the immune system and create an immune response. This can happen due to damage to the enterocyte layer, often from inflammation, medications, stress, or certain foods. There's something called LPS, or lipopolysaccharide, which represents the outer coat of gram-negative bacteria that end up migrating across this leaky barrier in the general circulation and act like an endotoxin, triggering a strong immune response and inflammatory reaction, which leads to potentially multi-inflammatory gynecological conditions. So what is the gut microbiome and why is it so important? I wanted to briefly describe the differences between prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics. Probiotics are the live beneficial bacteria. It can also be viruses and yeast that live in our digestive tract symbiotically and are highly individualized. They play a critical role in breaking down food, absorbing our nutrients, helping with our detoxification and elimination pathways, and they can contribute to food cravings as well as appetite. When these probiotics are out of balance, it can lead to inflammation, obesity, diabetes, brain fog, and other hormonal problems. In addition to probiotics, we have prebiotics, which are food that feed these microorganisms. And then we have postbiotics, which are the metabolites made by the bacteria. And one of the most important postbiotics, or metabolites, is something called butyrate, which is a short-chain fatty acid that keeps our intestinal lining healthy and intact and protects against infection and inflammation. Key to a healthy microbiome is microbial diversity. An imbalance in the microbiota can lead to disruption of the host microorganism homeostasis. And when the diversity of these types of bacteria, fungi, and viruses are lost, the gut can no longer perform its hormone regulating functions properly. And then we end up getting GI symptoms such as bloating, chronic constipation, fatigue after meals, gas, irritable bowel syndrome, loose stools. And it can also present as non-digestive symptoms such as brain fog, anxiety, depression, yeast infections, fatigue, sugar or carb craving, sugar intolerance. And then from a gynecological perspective, can present as hormonal issues such as acne, recurrent bladder and vaginal infections, breast and endometrial cancers, pelvic pain, cyclic breast syndrome, endometriosis, infertility, PCOS, painful periods, and premenstrual syndrome. So let's talk about the physiology behind how the gut is related to estrogen. When looking at the pathway of estrogen, estrogen is made in the ovaries, fat cells, and adrenals, and then circulates through the bloodstream, acting on different estrogen receptors throughout the body that can be found in our brain, our heart, our bones, our uterus. And at the end of its journey, estrogen makes its way to the liver. The liver then breaks it down and activates it and prepares it to be excreted in the stool. When the estrogen is in your intestines, it meets a very special microbiome called the estrobolome. This estrobolome is responsible for metabolizing and regulating estrogen levels. The estrobolome regulates how much estrogen is eliminated or reabsorbed and recirculated into the body via an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase. This enzyme breaks down estrogens into their active forms and regulates how much estrogen is reabsorbed back into what we call the enterohepatic circulation, so from your intestines back to the liver. This represents another picture of how circulating estrogens can get regulated based on the estrobolome. The goal is to try to avoid the intestinal reabsorption of the deconjugated estrogens back into the liver, because this can often lead to inflammation and estrogen-related cancers. So the bacteria in the estrobolome can make estrogens from plants in the diet by converting what's called lignans from vegetables, legumes, and flax seeds into estrogen-like compounds called phytoestrogens or plant estrogens. These phytoestrogens bind to estrogen receptors and can promote a healthy estrogen metabolism. When we have estrogen levels that are high, these phytoestrogens can block receptors and protect you from risks of excess estrogen exposure that we can find in PCOS, endometriosis, and breast and endometrial cancers. When estrogen levels are low, these phytoestrogens can provide enough to keep estrogen levels supported. You can find more low estrogen states in the physiological normal menopausal symptoms, where women can have hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal dryness, or we can find low estrogen states in hypothalamic amenorrhea, which is a condition which leads to undernutrition and overexercise that can lead to no periods. So phytoestrogens can support all of these gynecological conditions. So when the gut has the right type and diversity of the microbiome, your estrobolome absorbs and excretes the right balance of estrogens to get a healthy hormonal balance. If there's an imbalance in the microbiome, the estrobolome bacteria can overgrow and you can produce or reabsorb too much estrogen. When you have too much estrogen, that can lead to heavy, painful periods, trigger fibroids, endometriosis, lead to mood swings, increase risk for breast cancers, endometrial cancers, and also increase your risk for PCOS. Low gut microbiota diversity can cause your estrobolome to poorly convert and absorb your body's own estrogen, and also produce lower levels of that enzyme beta-glucuronidase. The body can't utilize potentially the protective plant-based estrogens that we talked about with the phytoestrogens in the previous slide. Low estrogen states, such as in perimenopausal time, can lead to often symptoms such as sleep issues, mood issues, vaginal dryness, pain with intercourse, loss of bone, and heart health. So when we looked at specifically some gynecological conditions, we know menopause is a lower estrogen state and is often associated with reduced gut microbiome diversity. In endometriosis, 90% of women suffer digestive problems. This has to do with the root cause of endometriosis, which is often dysbiosis and leaky gut. In this condition, it leads to higher LPS or lipopolysaccharide crossing into that mucosal barrier and causing that inappropriate immune response firing and increasing inflammation in the pelvic region. When this LPS comes in contact with ovaries, we have more elevated markers of inflammation in the fluid of the ovary. The marker is called follicular IL-6 and suppressed progesterone. Greater activity of this estrogen leads to higher estrogen levels that end up stimulating endometriosis growth. And this may explain why a lot of women battle digestive issues when they have endometriosis. In PCOS, we also see less gut microbiota diversity, which shifts the ovarian function and testosterone levels. This altered gut microbiome can promote an increased androgen biosynthesis via the similar enzyme we talked about, the beta-glucuronidase activity. And this dysbiosis can affect insulin resistance, cause weight gain, and increase food cravings. So what can we do to optimize gut balance? Well, first, we can avoid some gut disruptors, some obvious ones such as alcohol, which can raise estrogen levels, ultra-processed foods, artificial sweeteners. We can minimize as much stress as we can in our lives and help build stress resilience, minimize circadian rhythm disruption. So having a good bedtime routine, avoiding electronics before bed, waking up around the same time every day and going to bed around the same time are good protective factors for your gut. Lack of exercise can lead to gut disruption. Environmental toxins such as herbicides, pesticides, and heavy metals we want to avoid as much as possible. And then things that we can intake daily, such as Tylenol or PPIs, which help with acid reflux, and NSAIDs, antibiotics, and birth control pills, all can contribute to disrupting the gut. So we want to avoid them as much as possible. So what are some nutritional goals we can take to optimize our hormonal gut health? Well, we can incorporate butyrate, which is a fatty acid in grass-fed butter and ghee, which provides nourishment for the gut microbiota and heals the intestinal lining. We can also incorporate omega-3 fatty acids, which can be found in flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, as well as fatty cold water fish, such as salmon, mackerel, and sardines. We're going to be making a Mediterranean sardine sandwich recipe in the kitchen today, and that has a great source of omega-3 fatty acids to incorporate into your diet. Also, adding in vitamin A and beta-carotene-rich foods such as eggs, leafy green vegetables, carrots, broccoli, cantaloupe, spinach, apricots, and sweet potatoes. And we'll be making a sweet potato salad recipe today as well. Help nourish your gut. Also adding L-glutamine-rich foods. So L-glutamine is an amino acid that helps heal leaky gut and tightens gap junctions. And we can find L-glutamine in turkey, eggs, tofu, tempeh, and almonds. And lastly, adding in zinc-rich foods can help maintain tight intestinal junctions and reduce systemic inflammation. And we can find zinc in oysters, chicken, beans, and nuts. We want to eat more diversity of plants. So eating a diverse variety of plants optimizes hormone-favorable microbiome. Plants provide fiber, which is necessary to maintain the gut lining integrity and feed the microbiome. On average, most people eat about less than 10 plant-based foods per week. And based on this UCSD study, the goal is to eat at least 30 different types of plants per week, with the emphasis on diversity, not volume. Now, I wanted to give a shout out to flax seeds, which are a powerful gut and hormonal health ally. Flax seeds are a great source of fiber, omega-3 fatty acids, and a phytoestrogen. They feed the good gut flora by helping the body eliminate harmful estrogens from our environment and harmful estrogens that can be made by our body. Fiber helps soak up estrogen metabolites in the small intestine to help with the excretion instead of those estrogen metabolites being reabsorbed and going back into the liver, leading to a less estrogen burden on the body. Ground flax seeds can also improve blood sugar, lower your cholesterol, and reduce inflammation. They support regular ovulation, lengthen your luteal phase, and increase progesterone production. I tell my patients to sprinkle 1 to 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed over smoothies and salads daily. Some tips and tricks for ground flax seeds. You want to buy the seed form of flax because it stores well. You can use a coffee grinder to prepare a week's worth of ground flaxseed. And you want to store that ground flaxseed in the fridge because once it's ground, the oils are released and it can spoil quickly. We can also eat prebiotic-rich foods as another nutritional addition to add to our healing gut goals. So the healthy gut flora needs prebiotic-rich foods. Prebiotics are particular starches or fibers that serve as food for the gut microbiota. They increase that short-chain fatty acid, that metabolite made by the bacteria, which modulates intestinal permeability and decreases inflammatory mediators like the lipopolysaccharide. Foods such as Jerusalem artichoke, garlic, onion, leeks, shallots, asparagus, fennel, green peas are all great vegetables for prebiotics. Nuts and seeds, we can look at cashews and pistachios as having a lot of prebiotics, and in fruit, grapefruit, berries, and bananas. Also, we have resistant starches, which is a form of a carb not broken down into sugar in the gut, found in lentils, chickpeas, kidney beans, brown rice, and oats as great examples of prebiotic-rich food. You can also eat probiotic-rich foods, which are fermented foods that help rebuild a healthy microbiome, improve our natural detoxification and elimination pathways, restore our immunity, reduce inflammation, and potentially can improve our mood and clarity. The goal is to have about 3 to 5 fermented foods per week or 2 to 4 tablespoons per day. Great examples of probiotic foods are kimchi, sauerkraut, pickled vegetables, water, brine cured olives, coconut yogurt or coconut kefir, and miso. Lastly, I wanted to talk about utilizing culinary herbs and spices as a way to heal the gut. Culinary herbs and spices are great antimicrobials. They prevent the overgrowth of harmful bacteria in the gut. They are great antioxidants. They reduce inflammation, and they improve blood sugar and insulin sensitivity. We have 2 great recipes we're going to make in the kitchen today that incorporate 2 very powerful spices, ginger and turmeric, which I'll briefly kind of go into. But we'll be making a ginger maple dressing and a lemon turmeric cake with candied ginger. So looking at ginger, it's a great spice for anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, anti-cancer, and anti-nausea properties. It fights against infections. It lowers blood sugar and lipids. I utilize it a lot to help when patients with reducing menstrual cramps. I often tell them to do a ginger tea or ginger supplement a few days before starting their menses to help with painful menstruation. With the tea, you can simmer about half a teaspoon of dried or 2 teaspoons of fresh ginger rhizome in 12 ounces of water for 5 to 7 minutes, then strain and drink about half a cup 3 to 4 times per day. Dried ginger is best for nausea, and then fresh or dried is okay for other purposes. And lastly, we'll look at turmeric, which contains 2 to 9% curcuminoids, which creates that beautiful yellow pigment that you see in turmeric. Curcumin, which is one of the 200 compounds in turmeric and the most dominant of curcuminoids, has antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, anti-cancer, and neuroprotective effects. Curcumin helps reduce the inflammation by shifting the ratio in your gut from the beneficial and pathogenic microbes, thus decreasing the release of that lipopolysaccharide again, the fragments of gram-negative bacteria, into the circulation. And this ultimately maintains the intestinal barrier integrity, making it less permeable. Curcumin stays in the gut, which makes it kind of a special spice, and it's not easily absorbed into the bloodstream from the GI tract. And when it is absorbed, what is metabolized and eliminated quickly, it often doesn't stay within the system. So often you can see in supplements, it's often blended with black pepper alkaloid piperine to increase the absorption. But the most recent research suggests that the power of turmeric actually becomes that it stays within the gut microbiome and it helps really heal the intestinal barrier. Beware that lead can be purposely added to turmeric to enhance its color and weight. So the Consumer Reports testing has looked at different products of turmeric and to make sure what has the least amount of heavy metals. Simply Organic turmeric wins that kind of competition. You can see these other brands that have less heavy metals within them that you want to tend to go towards. McCormick is a brand that you're probably familiar with in the grocery store and that also made the cut on the Consumer Reports testing. So in summary, the key takeaways are maintaining a healthy intestinal lining and optimizing the gut microbiome is essential for hormonal balance. The estrobolome is the microbiome responsible for regulating estrogen levels in the gut. This estrobolome regulates estrogen levels via the enzyme beta-glucuronidase, which breaks down estrogens into their active forms and regulates how much estrogen is reabsorbed back into the circulation, which is what we want to avoid. Gut dysbiosis and leaky gut can be contributory root causes of disrupting hormonal homeostasis. And then nourishing the gut lining with nutrients, plant-based fibers such as ground flaxseed, culinary herbs and spices, as well as prebiotic and probiotic-rich foods, can help heal the root cause of many gynecological conditions. These are my references, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. Go back to you, Jess. Okay.
If there are any questions. Q&A, yes. Oh, that's a good one. Do you see it? There. So Q&A.
Yes, PCOS is definitely reversible with a lot of lifestyle changes and nutritional goals you can reach to actually reverse it. So.
Okay, so I think we're going to get started, and we are going to start by making cake. And as you think of more questions too, feel free to just put them in the Q&A, and then we will answer them. Yep. Yeah, perfect. All right, so we're going to start with the cake. And a lot of people will be like, in the health, in this arena, there's a lot of things that we do to make food healthy. And so we often get dinged because it's always like, well, what are you going to do? Just add turmeric into everything? Or the other thing is, oh, are you just going to add hemp seeds into everything? So we are adding turmeric into this. But it's a great way to color things too. And I think that's the main thing with this cake. It's really nice because you can color it that way. But the really cool part about this recipe is a technique where you can flavor your sugar. So what I'm going to do, yep, you can see. I have sugar here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a lemon and I'm going to zest it. I'm going to use the juice later too. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to zest the lemon. And that way this cake will taste very lemony. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rub this zest into the sugar until it turns a little bit yellow. So then it'll flavor the sugar to be lemony too. So you can just take it in there and then you just go in and you just rub. And that way the sugar tastes like lemon. It's more flavorful. If you have Meyer lemons, you can use Meyer lemons too. And that is it. And then you'll see it'll actually start to turn a little yellow too. So it's really pretty. All right. So now let's talk about baking. When we bake, we have two bowls, a wet bowl and a dry bowl. Okay. The funny thing is that sugar is actually considered wet. So we're going to put the wet things in here, and then we're going to keep the dry things in this one. We're using whole wheat flour. So you can use whole wheat. If you can get whole wheat pastry flour, even better, just because it's a little bit easier to, it just tastes a little bit finer. Our turmeric. And so I do want to highlight that we are not adding any kind of pepper in here. You could try, it would be very peppery, but you do get more of that benefit of the curcumin from the turmeric when you mix it with the pepper. So I know I'm not doing that right now. So, but you're still getting turmeric. All right. So I'm going to whisk this together. So those are just our dry ingredients. Oh, and a little bit of salt. If you know me, I don't have salt on a lot of things. Okay, so just a little pinch of salt. And then let's get our wet ingredients together. So like I said, there's the sugar in there. We're going to play with our fats now. And our fats are going to be a little bit of yogurt. Okay. Applesauce. So I'm not going all applesauce because if I went all applesauce, it ends up being a little bit dry. So you want to play around with your fats a little bit. And then I have canola oil. If you want to use olive oil, you can use olive oil too. Really just any oil that you have on hand. And then 2 eggs. Now, I know you were talking about flax seeds. You can do flaxseed eggs for only 1. Don't do both because you want the volume from the eggs. So you can do a flaxseed egg and it's just 1 tablespoon of flaxseed mixed with 3 tablespoons of water. And so you could get that flaxseed egg in there then, and then you're getting that extra fiber then. Since the cost of eggs is just crazy. Yeah. Good news though, I think the cost of eggs will go down after Easter. Because if you really pay attention, there hasn't been any outbreaks of bird flu anywhere. So these price increases right now, I think, are for Easter, like people wanting their eggs to decorate and everything. So now I'm going to take about 2 tablespoons of lemon juice and squeeze it in there. You can measure it if you want. I find that 1 lemon is a good gauge. Okay. And then I'm going to whisk this. And we don't need any volume to this. It's pretty simple. The fun part of this, or the kind of playing part of this, is what you want to bake it in. So we have a loaf pan that we're going to use, but you can use a cake pan. You can use really anything that you want. Just make sure you pay attention to the time. All right. So now I'm going to take this. And I'm going to dig a hole right in the middle. And I'm going to pour my wet into my dry. Now remember, flour has gluten. Gluten acts like our muscles. So the more I mix this, the tougher it's going to get. So if you want like a really nice light cake, don't over mix. I'm literally just using the whisk to get the flour wet. And that is it. Few streaks are okay. And that's all I'm going to mix. I'm going to grab my spatula now. And what I'm going to do is add some crystallized ginger. So you can buy 2 types of crystallized ginger out there. I find mine at Sprouts usually. One just has a preservative and one doesn't. So one has the sulfur dioxide, I think, is on it, and one doesn't have it. So some people are allergic to it. Some people aren't. But you can go ahead, and I'm just going to fold that in. But the cake isn't very sweet, and so that crystallized ginger really helps bring it all together. Go. And then, Chris, can you grab me a loaf pan? We're going to grab a loaf pan really quick. And then I'm going to slice up some lemons. So really thin, as thin as possible. And they're going to go right on top. If you can take the seeds out, obviously take the seeds out. And again, having it with Meyer lemons would work just as well. I'm grabbing a pan. Thank you. Nice. And I'm going to pour this in here. Now, this is what I mean. You're going to play with the time a little bit. Because I'm using a loaf pan, it takes longer than a cake pan. Just think of the surface area, like how much is exposed to the air. So this is going to take a little bit longer. I think this took about 10 minutes longer than if you had done it in like a 9-inch cake pan. So just make sure you keep your eye on it. But then I'm going to tap it. And I'm going to arrange some pretty lemon slices right on top. Again, take out the seeds if you can. I think the Myers are actually, they don't have seeds. And so that's what's nice about it. Little bit more, just like that. Okay. And then I have some sugar in the raw turbinado sugar, and we're going to sprinkle that right on top. And I'm going to pop it in a 325, 350 degree oven and bake it. Then when it comes out, the power of TV, right? Yes. So now it's here. It's like it can be like a loaf, just like that, but I want to cut it so that you can see what it looks like inside. Super duper moist. So you can see that, and the color is what you're really looking at. It's really turmeric-y color. It's nice and bright. I wish the color was a little bit better on the TV, but that's it. And then the top, those lemon slices, if you cut them really thin, after you put the sugar on top of it, it's almost like you're candying lemon slices on top as well. So super nice cake, freezes well. You can have it for breakfast if you wanted. If you want, you can play around with the flours too. So you could probably use a little bit of oat flour. You can use the alternatives too. So like the gluten-free ones, and those would work as well. Easy cake. I know. I think with baking, the hardest part of it is finding all the ingredients and measuring it all. And I had it all done, so it was nice and easy. All right. Next, we're going to make a salad. So let's talk about our salad. We have sweet potatoes that we're roasting off. And if you haven't noticed already, one of the things I do with sweet potatoes is I roast them with the skin on. The skin, especially if you're buying organic sweet potatoes, that dirt, the soil is what you're paying for. That's the organic portion of it. So the whole idea is you want to eat the skin. I don't know the percentage for a sweet potato, but for like an apple, it's a 25% reduction of fiber just by removing the skin. So if we remove the skin, you're removing a lot of the good stuff. I want you to try it with the skin because it has an earthiness that you get that's really cool. Sweet potatoes are sweet, but then that little piece of that skin makes it just that much more robust tasting. So to cut it, I'm going to trim off the ends. Oh, yes, the last thing, and I know some of you have been here before. In California, we do not have yams. It's very hard to find a yam for the life of us. The difference between a sweet potato and a yam is the skin. Smooth skin like this is always going to be a sweet potato. A yam has a lot of grooves in it, and it's got a lot of dents. Sweet potatoes are a little bit healthier than yams are, mainly because of the starch and the sugar content. And so if you read it here in California, they like to label any red flesh, orange flesh potato a yam. So it's actually a sweet potato, but they label it that way. So and the good ones are the Japanese ones. The purple ones are really good too. So obviously, this is a large, dangerous vegetable. So I'm going to use my hand on top to help cut. Sweet potatoes don't cut that easily, so I want you to be careful and create pieces that are easier for you to manage. So I'm going to cut that in half again, and now I'm going to take that. And again, using the top of the knife to help. And always remembering your claw. So claw your other finger or your other hand so you don't cut your fingers. And just like that. And I'm going to cut this in half again. Then cut. And if you don't like sweet potatoes like me, you can use a potato, regular yellow potatoes, even purple potatoes. Again, it's eating those colors that are super beneficial. Then I'm going to take these nice sweet potatoes, put them in a bowl, and just toss them with a little bit of maple syrup and oil. You can season this now too if you want with a little bit of salt and pepper. But then I'm going to put it on a cookie sheet and just roast it. And then after you roast it and take it out, you've got these like little croutons of sweet potatoes. This is only a portion of the recipe, so it's a little less. Don't worry. You are looking at less. And we're going to build our salad now. So we're going to use kale. Why? When you're using something hearty, like a sweet potato to make a salad, if you use any of those light greens, this weighs it down too much. And then you lose a lot of the lettuce, gets wilty super fast. So you want something stiffer or like it's got a little more body to it. So kale. Always buy it with the stem and then take off the leaves. Don't buy the ones in the bags that already have it chopped up for you because they're chopping the stem and adding that in too. This is great as pesto. So if you keep a lot of these stems around, keep them in your freezer, you can make a pesto out of them, or you can even just make a veggie stock. Just chuck them all inside with a little bit of mushroom stems, just any of the trimmings that you might have that you're not going to use. You could even collect like little sweet potato ends, and you could start making a bag of stock that you could have. Okay, so kale, ready to go. Now let's make our dressing. Oh, and since we're using so much maple syrup, let's do the maple syrup talk. Maple syrup should be liquid like this. It should not be thick and glumpy like honey is. It should be thin. If you're not paying a pretty penny for it, it's probably not maple syrup. So you want to turn your maple syrup to the back and read the ingredients. It should not say corn syrup and then maple flavoring. It should say 100% maple syrup. And maple syrup can get very expensive. So my trick, and it's like the one thing I get there. If you have a grocery outlet, I don't know how many people know that supermarket, but there's grocery outlets, and they will actually sell the jug of maple syrup for $12. Usually that jug goes for like $16 to $18 and they sell it for $12. So I stock up there for the maple syrup. And we got a little vinegar, apple cider, ginger, right? Spice it up. And then a lot of mustard. Mustard is not necessary. If you have it at home, add it. What does it do? It's just binding the oil and the vinegar together. That's all it's doing. And then our olive oil. I'm going to give that a good shake. And then we've got our dressing ready to go. This will stay in your refrigerator for up to a week. So you can keep this, any dressing. Start making dressings in jars. Keep it in your refrigerator. Take them out as you need them and you want them. But we're going to bulk this salad up with a little bit more. Salt, feta cheese, crunch, all three of these. So we're going to add pomegranate seeds, some apples, and some walnuts. Pomegranate seeds, you can obviously just add in. For the apple, you can cut them. I'm not going to use the whole thing. I'm just going to use half. But I'm going to make them into sticks. Now, obviously, that's going to be hard to cut, right? So I'm going to keep it on a side where I'm not going to cut myself. And if you ever notice the outside of the apple is slippery, if your knife is not sharp, it won't cut through it. So cut on the inside of the apple versus the outside of the apple. But the apple gives a little bit more of a sweetness. If you choose a green apple, obviously it'll give it a little bit of an extra tart flavor too. So I'm just going to show you how you cut on the inside to be safe. Okay. Like that. There. Now, before I add my walnuts and my feta cheese, I'm going to massage my kale. So I'm going to go in and add half of the dressing, not all of it, just some of it. And then go in there and really work at the leaves. Okay. Now, you can't overdo this. So what you're looking for is just for the leaves to be shiny. You're starting to break down the fibers that are in there. And so all I'm doing is just kind of literally massaging it, going in and just kind of giving it a little rub, just like that. You can do it even just with olive oil first if you want. But I like a little bite to the kale, so I definitely don't over massage. There are people who will go crazy with the massaging sometimes. There you go. And then toss in your sweet potatoes. I'll keep the cheese on the side just in case people don't like cheese. And then for your walnuts, same. We're going to rock back and forth. You're going to put your hand on top and just go back and forth, just like that. Again, extra crunch, whatever nut you have or whatever seed. If you have pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, almonds, anything will do. Again, texture is what we're looking for in something like this. Put that right on top. And then when you're ready to serve, you can serve it with some feta cheese. All right. Last and most fun, I think. I debated. Karen Lindsay, I think you've heard me say she loves her sardines. A lot of our providers like sardines. Yeah, a lot of them do. And so you can buy a lot of different brands out there. I'm actually noticing as I was buying this, I was noticing there are more and more sardine brands popping up now too. So I was nice and bought you the skinless and boneless one so you don't have to see the head and the skin. But what I was going to say is the skin and the bones are actually part of the most nutritious part of the fish. So you're going to get a lot more calcium in it. And then it's just healthier because you're eating the whole thing. But if you're scared and you don't want to, and this is something that you've never done before, buy them skinless and boneless. And we're going to use the oil. So it's not like we're going to throw the oil away, okay? We're going to use the oil that's in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drain it. If you want, this is Karen Lindsay's salad recipe, is bring a jar, dump the oil over your salad, squeeze a lemon, and have a hard-boiled egg with your salad. It's a really good, it's a really good salad. All right. And then I've got some pesto. So this is where you get to decide. Do you want to use all that oil or not? So I'm going to take some out first. And then if I do want to, I can add more. But I'm going to add pesto inside and mix it with some beans. Now this ends up acting kind of like a mayo for you. It's a spread, right? And white beans you can find pretty easily. If you can't find cannellinis, you can use Great Northern. They're not as soft as cannellinis are, but either one would work. So it's kind of like a hummus at the end of the day. Same idea. And if you have cats, keep them away because they can smell this stuff like a mile away. And you can use the water one too if you're worried about extra fat. But again, it's usually olive oil. And that's it. Okay, so now I'm going to get my gloves on because I don't want to smell like sardines later. But yeah, sardines are one. So when we talk about culinary medicine and fish, we call them the smash fish. So sardines, mackerel, anchovies, smelt maybe. I don't know. But it is. The smaller, the better. So see how small these guys are. And the whole idea is they don't get to grow that large and absorb the dirty stuff that they might be sitting in then. Whether it's the ocean, farmed, whatever. And now I'm just going to break up some of the sardine and mix it in. And then we will build a sandwich. Can you grab me a slice of sourdough? Go. Now, this part is very, very unappetizing looking, so we have to do something about that. We're going to make it look appetizing. So we're going to make it a Mediterranean style sandwich. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to add really common Mediterranean ingredients. Thank you very much. So we're going to add red onion, cucumber, tomato, and spinach or arugula. If you have arugula, I've been in a arugula phase recently, I feel like. So for the tomato, I'm just going to slice the tomato. And if you don't want tomato, it's fine. You do what you like. But I like making an open-faced sandwich with this. And then I'm going to slice some red onion. And then we have some cucumber. And that's it. And then we can take our bread. I have sourdough. You can use whatever you want. And you're going to take your bread and you're going to spread the fish mixture, fish and bean, mixture on the bottom. I'm trying to get all the edges covered, just like that. And then you're going to top it with tomato, a little bit of onion, more. And that's it. There you have an open-faced sardine sandwich. Ooh, and then at the very end, if you want to squeeze some lemon on top too. That's it. All done. Do you guys have any questions?
There was one question about substituting walnuts
for
the salad recipe.
Yeah, any nut. So you can even do I'll give you a funky one, but I think it would work well since everybody's anti-oats these days. You could toast oats up even. Oh, I forgot to put the spinach on top. But you could even toast up oats if you wanted to. But any nut can do, and seeds too. So if you like sesame seeds would work as well. Pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, almonds, but anything crunchy. And if you don't like nuts, then you don't even need to add them. Another fun one to do is quinoa, where you can cook quinoa and then you can put it in your oven at 400 degrees and toast it. And then they're like little crunchies then. And then it's gluten-free. It's not a nut. It's actually protein. So that's a little fun one to do as well. Let me see. Any other questions? Wait. Nice. Well, we will hang out for another 5 minutes or so. If anybody has any questions, We'll be here eating and you can watch us. No, I'm just kidding. We will enjoy. Thank you again for joining in today. And again, let us know if you have any questions. We'll be right here.
Yeah.
Sardines at Sprouts. Actually, no. Of all places, Walmart. Yeah, I actually found them at Walmart. Yeah, Walmart. And that was where I was shocked that there was a huge section of it. Yep, they can just be eaten from the can. And they've gone so far as making them different flavors in the cans too. There's like the hot Louisiana one, and so the lemon pepper one is really good too. But yeah, they're definitely trying to get people to eat more sardines, and there's not less tuna, but not as much tuna on the market.
It's just such a great source of protein and calcium. So I really recommend it for women with osteoporosis.
Oh yeah.
Optimize their bone health.
Yep.
So sardines, great one.
Thank you, everyone.